Us today is one of our favorite guests, Logan Hicks, AI engineer at AWS. Welcome back, man.
Mm. What's going on, man? I'm actually at DIA now, but yeah.
Oh, wow.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Yep, yep.
I'm your host, Kevin,
And I'm your co-host, Brian.
and you're now tuned in to Coder Conversations. Man, welcome back. It seems to be a lot of changes in your life lately. You was at AWS now. You have a new company. So, yeah, just
Yep.
tell us about your whole, AI software journey.
Yeah. My background in the military started with systems, and I evolved from systems through satellite communications platforms, running Inmarsat, EchoStar 9, and Milstar satellite groups, and then moving away from STT trailers and ANTSC 85s and 93s and Phoenix terminals over to doing JNN systems and STTs, and then after that, moving heavily into IT standard traditional infrastructure. So you're running your standard Dell and HP server clusters. And then obviously your standard storage systems. It varies based on evolution. I've worked with EMC equipment, NetApp systems, and a couple of other no-name vendors and custom configuration clusters. And I just moved more heavily into security and systems over time, and that led me into security, deep into cybersecurity and the compliance. And then I just kept expanding from there at the senior principal and principal level architect roles, and until I covered every major discipline. And AI and ML is a new animal to the party, so here I am as a lead AI and ML engineer.
Uh,
Covered all the bases. The game
Awesome.
keeps changing, but I don't.
so, do you feel like the military is actually a good pathway, a good entry into tech? Like, did it teach you, like, at least give you the opportunity to prepare you for a commercial, private career in tech? Like,
I think that's a dangerous dice game to play. The military was fantastic for me in particular. I have the right mindset. I went in with the right intents and purposes, with the right plan, and with the right background. I came out JROTC high school and then went straight into the military pre high school with the late entry. Once I graduated, I went straight to basic training, straight out of basic training, straight into active duty. Um, I was unique in that regard because I knew exactly what I wanted to do, why I wanted to do it. I had a plan, I had a pathway, I had an exit strategy. Everything was lined up. So, distinctively different than the average person's. I'm just going to go into the military, take whatever job they give me, and then get the college money when I get out. Yeah,
That's
really
right.
bad idea because a lot of those kids are coming out with they're coming out as like MPs going into like cybersecurity, and there's no correlation between work experience and education, and because of that major mismatch,
Yeah.
there's major problems for them. There are certain people that are going in to be like cyber operators in CNO space, which I've done work in as a lead CNO operator. um, if you do that, I think it's a 17 series, and then you come 17 series active duty into college, and then you've got like 2 to 4 years of experience as an operator, maybe 8 years as an operator. You go to college on top of that, and you're working full time while doing that. You're set up for success, but that's a plan. That's an actual plan right there. You could go in and be a 25 Bravo or a 25 uniform, or a 25 Sierra like myself, and then come out and do college, or do college while you're in, which is what I recommend, using the tuition assistance programs that they've got for active duty personnel, and then just having the military pay for your college while you're in. Come out, use your GI Bill to go active in the workforce while going to school. What I would recommend at nights and weekends. That way you still stay relevant, because what I don't recommend is you come out with 4 years of relevant experience in operational capacity, then you take yourself out of operations for 4 years, ends up being 5 for a 4 year degree, and then you end up going into the workforce. You haven't been active working for 4 years. You
Yeah, that's
have
tough.
lost relevance, and
Right.
you haven't worked for 4 years. So as far as they're concerned, you've been unemployed for 4 years, even if you've gone to school for 4 years. And so
100%. Yeah.
yeah, and you lose relevance, you lose sharpness. It's not a good plan. That's why I recommend nights and weekends, or you do second shift, third shift, you do mornings and weekends. But either way, if you want to go to college, that's the track that I recommend. But the whole point of going to college is to get the job. If you've already got the job, can you really justify the degree? And that comes down to a cost basis. Does the cost make sense? That's why I always say look at an ROI perspective, no more than 2x. I've actually got legislation that I'm looking to push before Congress specific to that, that they're going to hard cap all university college payouts to not more than 2x the national median average of the first 2 years post graduation and employment. So, like, say for instance, if you go for a degree with basket weaving, and the average basket weaver makes 20 grand, then the max that they could possibly pay from a federal perspective for that degree plan specifically is $40,000. And so you're not, paying $300,000 for a job that pays you 20. You're not set up for failure. The cost of the program has to be relevant to the income. Is what in simplest language.
Yeah, I mean, because otherwise people are just being set up for failure from the
Failure.
get.
Yeah. You're going to end up with, you're going to get a help desk job making 25, 35 an hour, but you've paid $400,000 to a university. You're never going to get ahead. And then that interest is going to compound on you for 2 to 4 years until you can get an actual good paying role. And then by the time you do, that's relative to your degree value, or cost basis, I should say. I shouldn't necessarily say value, because value is a relative term.
And
but
also,
yeah, by the time you
like
get there,
on LinkedIn, sometimes you see people that they have a master's in cybersecurity, but they have zero work experience. So like you're saying,
they're useless.
4 years off learning, that's not 4 years of on the job work. So these companies are like, well, you don't have relevant experience, you'll go get a help desk job.
Yeah, and I actually saw that at when I was working at the Pentagon. There was a guy that had a PhD, and he was working help desk because that's all he could get. And I was just like, that's kind of wild. You went to college for 12 years or something. And I'm just like 8, 12, whatever it takes to be a PhD these days. It seems to keep changing, but I'm just like, that's crazy that you spent that much time and money to go become that well educated and be that useless. But in all reality, not to be harsh, but that is the word I use, is useless. Your value, the percentage basis of your skill sets that are directly relevant and relative to the active operational theater is zero. You are of use. Your use is zero. You are useless. And it's not to be derogatory. It's to accurately describe your current skill sets. And that's to help people to understand from a neutral perspective. That's the failure you're setting yourself up for. If you don't practice relevant skill sets, you will fail. And when you fail, not if you fail, when you fail, you will be way behind the power curve. On top of that, you're also setting yourself up for long-term failure from the perspective of cost basis, because somebody with no college degree can easily take $25 an hour for a role, whereas in someone with a $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 college plan to pay for, when you go into the workforce, you have to start paying your college debts. That's how it works. The system is rigged to allow you to defer that in perpetuity to continue to increase that cost basis, but also to increase your education level. It's directly relative, and they put it on pause. In regards to payments, that's not interest. The interest continues to accrue in many programs. The payment is what is frozen. Do not get the two miscombobulated. They are not the same. There's a distinctive difference between forbearance and freezing, because a stasis means neither the interest nor the principal gain in value. They stay exactly the same to where they are. And you have to read the language of your contract to understand which one it is. But yeah, those guys end up having to ask for 35, 45, 55 an hour just to break even. And so you're not cost competitive anymore either. And it makes it even more difficult for you to enter the workforce, because you're operating at a deficit in order to even get a foothold in. And you're not going to get anywhere until you do. And so my recommendations is if you're in that situation, you're going to have to bite the bullet and just start working at the deficit, because that's the only way you're going to move. If you're in the middle of that process at least you've caught it in time. And my open recommendation is to start building your skill sets and portfolios directly relevant to what's active in the industry. Easiest way to do that is start Googling what tool sets and systems and technologies that the companies you're interested in working for and in the roles you're interested in entering into are using. That way you can intelligently speak to those technologies, their applications, and their integrations. That's how you're going to get ahead, and make up the ground that you've lost. Because a lot of the programs aren't actually having you work on current industry technologies, and the ones that are limited in scope. Typically, they're professionals that are also professors as adjuncts, and they're teaching you what they know they're working with now, which is great because that's what you need to be learning is what's relevant now. But that's why I'm not a big fan of SACS accredited programs, which is that's the oversight committee and auditory board and process, the organization that actually audits colleges for their college programs to become accredited. They're SACS accredited. They go through the SACS accreditation process, ACETs for 2 years. But in both instances, the challenge with that is employability. They don't measure employability. They measure the program. And then after you've gone through the program for the first group of students that go through, then they measure the program's efficacy for employment thereafter, which is terrible because you're letting someone run through a paid program for 5 years, 3 to 5 years on average, statistically, Department of Education data, 2025, 26. And you're hoping that you can be employable. And that's a terrible way to approach things. It's like this might work ism is crazy. But that's the college arena, and that's how it currently works and operates. And there's just nothing else to be said about it. It is what it is.
So now, Logan, what about, for our listeners, what about someone who is right out of college? Would you expect them or suggest to them go ahead and do an internship, or do you think that is a waste of time?
Oh no, if you're out of college, you're already screwed.
If
you haven't done your internship yet, you've already messed up.
Okay.
You should have been doing your internships your freshman year, in my opinion. You should be looking for internships day one. You should start looking for internships, because if you can do internships day one and you're getting that experience throughout the entire collegiate process,
right,
that's fantastic. Because by the time you're actually done, you may not have a full 40, but you might have 20 hours a week, for instance. So out of 20, 80 hours work week per annum, you're picking up 1040. So 1040 by 4, you're still 4,000 hours deep by the time you graduate college. So you're a well qualified junior at that point in terms of work hours. You're still a far stretch from 10,000 hours, but you're at least starting to get that direction. So you're headed towards being a mid. But you'll be a well-rounded mid. You'll have all the theoreticals, and you'll have a lot of fundamentals, and you'll have the experience that you've gotten from the actual production environment you've worked in as an intern. But if you're doing what a lot of people do, which is waiting for their sophomore/junior/senior year to get internships or try to, well, your first expectation is that you're going to get one in your sophomore year. Well, that's assuming you tried. Most people wait until their junior or senior year to try to get an internship. And the problem with that is you tried. What happens if you fail? Like, it's not like every single company has hundreds of internship slots available. There are a limited number of internship shops and limited number of internship slots, and there are a limited number of companies with internships, period. And so you're already very much so behind the gun when it comes to numbers. They're not in your favor. So do not wait to try to get an internship. That's a terrible plan. It's a terrible idea, and it's tradition. And it's just like the rest of college, in my opinion, which is there is an ideology behind college, and it is based off of practices and industry standards that are from like the 30s, 40s, and 50s. So 1930s, 1940s, 1950s.
Yeah.
Back when internships were something that every company had, where it's organizations openly expected you to come out of college, but the collegiate level knowledge was directly practical. It was directly relevant to industry. and it was kept up to that standard because the historical colleges were professionals who already had 10 to 15 years of experience. That's what college was intended for. So
Right.
when you go back to the historical understanding of what a college is supposed to be, you go back to what used to be, which is you would be the son of a practitioner of a particular trade. You would be started in that trade at a very young age. You would go to school and you would practice with the family when you came home, and you would work in the family business or your father or mother's trade. Um, Historically your father's trade. You would learn that trade. And then by the time you got to college age, which was 18 to 20, you already had 10 to 15 years of experience to some extent in that trade. You
Wow.
then went to college to pick up the current industry practices, to exchange trade secrets, and to come back home married. That's why most of the extremely old traditional conservative colleges, they are a male school, and literally like 2 to 5 miles away is a paired female college. It's an all women's college, and then it's a co-ed college now. That's the male colleges all ended up becoming co-eds. But the female colleges, a lot of the traditional female colleges that are really close by have remained as female colleges. And each of those colleges, there is typically a debutante or some kind of ball or some kind of prom where the two colleges always have a dance together. That's been history for a long period of time. It's a tradition that the schools keep. But that's legacy comes from you went to college, trade secrets, peer network building, and coming back married. And that was what colleges were for. It is what it is. I don't make the rules. I didn't write the history books. I didn't write the history. It is what it is. But that was the historical plan. That's what that model is based off of. That's not the case today. Matter of fact, I would say that there's major detrimental systemic problems with colleges. One of them being that many of the college professors have never actually practiced in the trade that they're teaching.
Oh,
They have
really?
learned in those trades. Yeah, if you actually pull up the resumes of the average college professor, you're going to be mortified to find that a lot of them have never actually practiced in the trades that they're teaching. They've gone to school for that trade and
Yeah.
then became college professors in academia directly after graduating.
That's
And
wild.
that's terrifying because
Yeah.
I mean, you're qualified to teach me the theory from what you learned, but the problem is that if you go to school, and remember, SACS has to accredit the program. So the program has to be accredited first, which means it has to be at least 3 to 5 years old. And then it's 3 to 5 years old from what you learned from when you started learning. So 3 to 5, plus you have to go to school for 3 to 5. So you have to have 3 to 5 more. So that's 3 to 5 plus 3 to 5. That's 6 to 10 years old information. And that's just for your 4 year. If you're going for a master's, add 2 more. And that's a problem because that becomes 8 to 10 years old information. How are you industry relevant, even in theory, if your information's 8 to 10 years old? Unless it's just like a very core fundamental foundational practice that's just typically found inside of every business. But that's going to be very limited. And that's not going to be company specific, any competitive edges, no trade secrets. You don't have any of that information because you never worked in industry. And
Sure.
how are you going to pass along your quote unquote knowledge that's of active relevance if it's not relevant?
And that's the whole problem.
That's the whole problem. And that's a lot of professors. Now, there are some that are actively working, like I said, adjuncts, and those professors are fantastic because they're actively working in industry. And so, my personal recommendation is before you pick your professor, if you're in school now, look them up on LinkedIn and see where they are in their career. If you can't find their LinkedIn or they don't have a LinkedIn, ask them or ask the school to provide a resume for that professor to figure out what's their relevant experience. And you should definitely be meeting with them during office hours to ask them questions about their relevant experience. Get information outside of just core curriculum. Learn what you can actually learn from your professors, not just what SACS accredited curriculum requirements say, because you're going to learn far more outside of that if you do. And that's what's going to give you a competitive edge, aside from obviously having a portfolio that gives you practical skill sets because you have to develop it. but also from, having a portfolio that can be reviewed by people when you go to interviews like myself, because that's the first thing I ask for. I ignore 95% of your resume. I don't read it. I'll read over it, but what I'm looking for is extracurriculars. What stuff have you done with regards to actual projects? Do you have any work experience? That's the 5% that I am looking for. Have you actually done anything? And if so, what was it? I'm skimming that. What I'm looking for actively, and I'm going to look into deeply, is your GitHub repos, your GitLab repos, any home lab stuff that you may have, any extracurricular projects, and anything that you've done with like conference talks or conference competitions, anything of that nature. Those are the 5 majors for me, because that shows me everything I need to know about you.
So how does somebody actually get to like host a conference or, talk at a conference? Like, how do you get invited to that kind of thing?
You just literally apply. They have CFPs that are year round. You can find any number of B-sides, any number of networking, or any number of systems, conferences, TED Talks, DEF CON groups, B-sides organizations. There's a laundry list. Anything in those spaces, just wait for their CFP to come up and have one prepared. Submit it. There's a lot of rookie tracks where they openly know you're brand new to the industry. They're not expecting a lot from you. We actively have mentors in the community dedicated specifically to helping you, to make sure you're successful and you don't fall flat on your face twice. You're going to fall at least once. It's going to be great. And we're going to laugh and we're going to chuckle and we're going to make fun of you. We're probably going to find a nickname for you somewhere in that pocket there. But yeah, we're going to make sure it goes at least relatively well. And the rookie tracks, they're expected. But yeah, we want to set you up for success, but you have to show up. And if you don't show up, we don't care. That's your choice. It's your career. Live it and run it however you want. But understand there are consequences to the actions that you take, more specifically the ones that you do not. And that's, you're not going to be competitive.
So, okay. So let's say someone, like you're saying, okay, someone goes to college, they take the internship freshman year. What about the people that are waiting until senior year? What would you tell? I mean, obviously, it sounds like they're kind of screwed. What would you recommend that person do in that situation?
I mean, they kind of are screwed.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, there's no real way to shake that stick, man. I'm not gonna, as I like to say, a candy coat shit, as the old saying goes. But I mean, it is what it is. It's you waited too long, and you're risking the biscuit, man. Like,
yeah.
And for what? An internship? No, do not do that. If you're in your senior and you're still not at an internship already, you should stop everything you're doing and focus exclusively on that until you have one, or some kind of entry-level job or some kind of volunteer level something, even if it's just volunteering at local B-sides chapters or DEF CON chapters or ISA chapters for security systems. You've got all kinds of Linux and lug groups. If you're like maybe a Microsoft shop, there's tons of Microsoft conferences that you can go to that are completely free. Show up to any one of those community meetups. There are tons of people there that are major Microsoft shops. A lot of them are Microsoft partners. Like, you've got to get yourself out there. You've got to get exposure. And more importantly, you've got to get actively working. And if nothing else, start actively working on projects. And I mean serious projects, not like the, I built a Raspberry Pi. I'm talking like you're building an Active Directory system that integrates actively with some kind of free cloud account that's interfacing with like maybe some low tier instances that are free tier instances that you have running when you have them up and active, and you're building out multiple enterprise grade services. You've got the networking configured, you've got security configurations configured. You are building real world experience, because even if you can't get that as an internship, you can still build it on your own. Because if you don't even do that, what it shows me is you don't care enough. And to be very blunt, if you don't care, why should I?
Right. And so a lot of people probably end up in that situation, though. Would you say it's over 50% that they go through college and then they start looking for the internship after the college?
I would say it's 80 to 90%. I would say 80 to 90% do the exact same thing that I'm talking about that I'm specifically telling you not to do is exactly what they do. But that's why
Wow.
you see on an entry level job 3, 4, 5, 600 people applying, and the vast majority are non-competitive because I can just click one button that says show me years of experience, which is
Right.
greater than 0, and you're hosed. You're automatically filtered out. It's not AI, it's me clicking a simple filter button. I have 600 resumes to look at. Do you genuinely think a lead engineer has time to read 600 resumes? Do you think the recruiter cares to read 600 resumes? They're not going to make it to me to begin with. Except, well, they will make it to me because I specifically tell the recruiter, do not eliminate candidates. I will do that. But that's me in particular. I filter people. I don't want you filtering people because I love you. You're wonderful. You may have been the one that helped me get this job. I don't want you touching my people. You're not qualified to tell them that they're not qualified. That would be like me telling a doctor he's not qualified to practice medicine. I don't have the qualifications and the expertise to make
Right.
that determination. Neither do you. If you're looking for a specific word match, there may be things in that candidate's profile that aren't a particular match for what's currently being asked for, but may be of something of extreme interest to us. And I want to see the of extreme interest people. And that's why I specifically tell recruiters not to filter the people. I will take care of that if you don't mind. But that's me.
Okay.
So do you think FAANG it still holds the weight that it once did? Like FAANG was something everybody wanted to get into. It was
Oh, dude, yeah.
Mhm.
It's the filter of all filters. It is the most brutal experience you will ever go through as an engineer. You think regular interviews are hard? Like, put it this way, I only got my Amazon job because I cloned Twitter. I
Wow.
literally built a sorry, no, it was Instagram. I built a complete running cloud-based, cloud-ready, cloud-active, WAN routable copy of Instagram. It looked like Instagram, it felt like Instagram, it performed like Instagram because in all reality, it effectively was Instagram. I just built it in my programming language of choice with my cloud services of choice. But that's typically that's like that's the check level. Like
right.
that's the door. Like
So
the
people,
bar,
employers are
yeah.
looking for, all right, you got to do this,
You
or
need to be a monster.
we're not even going to look at you unless you're
Yeah,
doing this.
like your history, your background, your capabilities and technology needs to be on par with if I said I want to rebuild Netflix, it's not a, oh, can we do that? No, it's these are the 6 different ways we could build it. These 3 are optimized for current industry practices. These 2 are best for cloud providers, and this one's the most affordable out of those 2 options. Which one would you prefer? This one's got better quality streaming and better for advertisers. This one's better for the consumer. Which one do you want? That's the level of experience you need, and that needs to be off the cuff, not like let me go look that up for you, or I don't know, let me check on that. No, that's a mid-level engineer or a senior level engineer mindset. You need to be like, I've already built this thing 6 different ways and a dozen different times, like level monster.
So
The interviews are brutal.
for that level of effort, do you feel the compensation is worth it, or is it better
Oh, the
split even?
compensation's insane.
Okay.
Like I'm
Yeah.
I'm actively interviewing for another tier. I would call them a tier 2 company because they're non-FAANG, but they're a high-end AI company. And the comp right now that I'm looking at is 280 plus 900,000
Wow.
Wow.
Not bad.
plus
Yeah.
bonuses. Yeah, yeah,
Plus bonus. Yeah.
yeah. And then the other one I'm looking at is a major hardware company, and just the base pay is $500,000.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. So the numbers are very different than what you're looking at. Most of the senior roles you're going to find are going to cap 150 to 200 total comp. Principal levels are going to cap that level. That's just, it is what it is. But that's at a tier 3, tier 4 company. That's what you should expect. And then at the higher end tier 2 companies, the pay is going to be a lot higher. At the tier 1s, the pays are practically unlimited. I'm actually, part of my progression chart now is I picked up the current role that I have to get more experience in a particular area of AI and ML so that I can optimize for the next role that I'm looking at now, so that I can look at the next role after this one. I'm already looking at where I'm going after this company that I'm still interviewing for. I already know I'm leaving within 6 months to 2 years. That is the expectation.
Right.
But I'm using that as a stepping stone to get to the target that I'm aiming at, which that company pays around $10 million a year.
So like, you know, with if companies pretty much expect you to leave within a couple of years, like, does that make them a little more hesitant in hiring you? Like,
No.
Okay.
No, the expectation for the average tenure for a FAANG level employee is between 1 year and 1 year and 6 months, 2 years max. The expectation is you will leave within that time frame. That's why companies have built their compensation structures to either A, automatically vest your stock on a monthly basis, or companies like Amazon, which is you have a 1-year cliff. You don't get anything if you leave before that 1 year. We want you to stay for at least 1 year.
Okay.
And that's how they get you for that 1 year. It's golden handcuffs for 1 year. And then it's a huge chunk, and then it monthly to keep you there. Because it's very difficult to argue to get you to stay if all you're getting is base pay. And that's why a lot of the companies have just said, okay, screw it. Well, we're just going to try to keep you for as long as possible. And we're going to do that by identifying high performers with quarterly reviews, with quarterly kickers. And they're constantly throwing more and more meat on the table to keep you from leaving. And that's how companies like Google and companies like Microsoft and companies like NVIDIA are keeping their talent. And companies like OpenAI are stealing talent, which is they're just like, look, instead of waiting 4 years for your real stock options to vest, we'll give you kickers, sign-on bonuses, performance bonuses, and your tech stock RSUs will vest immediately. You just start getting them. In some companies, you get them automatically. They just up front, they're yours. Those are really competitive roles though, because they're like, we really desperately need this person. So those are few and far between relative to the others, but they do exist.
So after leaving somewhere with like Amazon or, you know, Google, like where do you go next? Like maybe an NVIDIA or?
Yeah. NVIDIA. I'm looking at NVIDIA, Scale, Shield, some quant firms. I'm looking at other FAANG companies. It just really depends. It's just a different world. I mean, I don't really know. Yeah, it's like, you come work for Walmart, and I'm like, and struggle to buy ramen? Pass.
So, but if you want to get to this level to where FAANG level companies are going to hire you, you're kind of saying, okay, you need to do X, Y, and Z. You need to clone Instagram. You need to clone Twitter, Facebook, and show them that you know how their system works and how you might best optimize that system.
Yeah. Like you need to just, I mean, let's just jump into it, man. Let me pull up I'll show one of my big data projects. Yeah, let me toss that over here. Visual Studio Code. Yeah, well, maybe not that one. All right, let's see. Yeah, cool. We'll do this. Can we share screens?
Yeah.
Is that a thing? Let me move my Pornhub real quick. No, I'm kidding. Let me do this one. Yeah. So like, can y'all see that? Is that a thing?
Let me.
Can they see that? Is that a thing?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah. So like right here, it's did my keyboard die? Did it die? No, it didn't die. Oops. Don't save that for damn sure. Oh, my connection to my system died. Give me 1 second. Uno momento. My entire system dropped. We'll just jump on one of my dev boxes. We'll just have to do this because it's not cooperating. We'll just connect to one of these. There we go. And that will disconnect it. This is a clever girl reset. Totally abusing system processes. And then Explorer. And then we'll just jump back over, reconnect back to it with the one that we want. There we go. and that resets it, because Visual Studio Code doesn't have a reset button, because why not? All right, so this is a code project that I'm working on now. And what I'm working on is building a two-part system. One is an uploader service that's literally just scanning directories and volumes. And all it's doing is saying, if I find anything, any service, any activity, any file uploads, I'm going to look for that data. I'm going to identify that data. I'm going to analyze that extension file format. I'm going to check to make sure that it's not corrupt, check to make sure that it's not actively in use, check to make sure that it hasn't been modified in a short period of time. And if all those three checks are clear, I'm going to grab that file. I'm going to take all that information. I'm going to start a worker service process to say, hey, this file is now being processed. This is the name of the process. Here's the task ID. You can actively track its progress through the work pipeline. Then it's going to take that file, ingest that data from that file. It's going to open it up. It's going to read everything in it. It's going to collect that information. It's going to standardize it. Go ahead.
Logan, are you sharing the right screen? Because I just see that main.py.
Yeah. You could see that. You can see the first one, which is Flash Service 0 v3, and then the other one is the classifier, and the one at the bottom is the uploader service. It's actually this one right here.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, so we'll minimize that service, because that's the processor, the ETL ELT custom processor. And so you can see where the worker is here and the uploader is there, and then it's actively grabbing stuff, and then you've got the uploader py file here, and these are some of the formats that it's looking for in the current extensions. And it's literally just saying, hey, if this file format exists, I'm going to grab that, I'm going to ingest that, I'm going to process that. Once it's done, I'm going to create a marker on that says, hey, this file has been successfully uploaded. I'm going to send up the notification, and I'm going to delete the old file because the job's been completed. I don't want it to run again. And then it goes into the next system, which is the next service, which is my processor. And then it's got my ingesters, my connectors, which is connecting to something else to push it through. And then it's got different tasks that it runs, utilities, validators, and then the main py file, which is got like your standard health check, your standard ingest routes and stuff, and your task ID trackers, things of that nature, and then web homepage, and just know that it runs.
So for like less technically inclined, what exactly is an ingester?
So what it is it's saying, okay, from a consuming perspective, I got an uploader. The uploader is like, hey, here's this drink. The uploader literally is saying, I'm looking at the table, this table here. This is my desk. And then I call this my table. It's actually, I've got like an extra mat here. It's my table. It protects my actual mat with a secondary mat that I can easily wash, which you should do, you nasty slobs. Trade secret, extra mat, makes it very easy to clean up your snack area. But it's like, okay, I'm looking for anything that's a drink. It's like, I've got my gummy bears. That's not a drink. It fails to check. I've got a cell phone. That's not a consumable. It fails to check. I've got a sauce here. It passes a consumable, but it's not an actual item we want to drink. So it's missing the extension format. It's the incorrect one. So we leave that. But then we've got the drink. Okay, cool. It's a .can file. So this .can file, all right, we've grabbed the .can file. We're looking at the .can file. All right, it hasn't been modified lately. The .can file has content. It's not empty. Well, this one's empty, so we'll do the bottle. .bottle. It's not empty. And then, okay, it meets the .bottle format that I'm looking for, so I'm going to ingest it. I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to grab it. I'm going to pull the data out of it. I'm going to consume it, and then it's going to be processed. And then that data is going to be consumed and processed. It's going to be structured into a specific format based on its schemas, and then it's going to be sent to a specific connection. So like with this one, I modified it to try a specific file outright. Write out format. It's very simple one here, but it's what this is doing is this in this section here specifically, it's printing the row to make sure the row's there. It's checking for a request. It's grabbing the data. It's opening the file after it's sending it. It's writing it to a specific text file for testing purposes. And then at the bottom, which I've got commented out, I was doing that with an output for JSON format for a JSON dump as well. And then it's returning the data. It's pretty straightforward with the row and row readers. But yeah, it's a pretty straightforward processor. It processes it from a digital perspective. It does something with it. This one's instance is it's sending it somewhere, and then it's also writing it out to a file in this particular one for testing purposes. Yeah, 1 second. Sorry. But it's pretty straightforward. And this is a second step in a process. This is one of many steps of a process of grab the data, ingest the data, process the data. Now that I've transformed the data and I've sent it into a system, like in this instance, it connects to multiple systems like a REST connector, an Elastic Stack system. It can connect to Kafka. It can do JSON. There's a lot of different S3 buckets. It all depends on what I want it to connect to. But the overall objective with that is being able to connect to certain systems, being able to connect to certain items, being able to connect to certain processes, and it's a pipeline. I'm building a full-on pipeline, an end-to-end pipeline. It's a full system of systems. And the objective is, just like with everything else in the industry, the objective is to build something functional, something useful, something that is business purpose driven. What is the business purpose? Well, for this, this is business purpose agnostic. It's a data processor. Its job is to take data, identify that data can be used, ingest that data, process that job, notate that that job has been completed, move that into the ETL, ELT process, say that that's been completed, move that into the next step, because you saw the celery worker in that one as well, and then move that into the next process, which is a big data system or a data storage system or an API system. It just depends on what you're trying to connect to. The more things you can connect to it, the more useful universally it is, which this one is a universal processor. I want it to be able to work with any system because I don't know the format the data that I'm going to be receiving is in. And since I don't know that, I can't guess. I have to automatically just prepare for an agnostic implementation. Now, in most production pipelines, that's pre-structured. And the reason for that is it's far easier to deal with a tolerant system versus an agnostic system. A tolerant system will simply ignore the things that it can't use. And that's one of those statements that it's doing a for loop or a while loop or an if not loop. And it's looking at those particular things to say, okay, well, this isn't in the parameter that we accept, so reject the rest. If it's not the thing that we are looking for, it's a not thing and ignore the not things. And the tolerant system. Agnostic is, I'm going to consume everything you throw in this directory. It doesn't matter what you throw out there. I'm going to grab it. I'm going to open it. I'm going to read it. I'm going to process it. And it's going to be one of these major formats, or it's going to go into my catch-all box. And it's going to be one of those things. And so it's just for a regular pipeline, it's going to probably have 5 or 7 different formats. And all the pre-established systems like your Kafkas, your Elastics, your Postgres's, those are all predetermined. It's going to analyze all of those. It's going to pipeline all of those, and it's going to have pre-structured formats for all of those. And the rest is going to go into something like an Elastic Stack box or something, or just like an overall, some kind of generic. It's any extension format, and it's going to get consumed by an LLM or something. And it's going to be less efficient because it doesn't have an established processor. But
so, like when you're explaining
like that,
when you're explaining this code on a interview, what exactly like are you focusing on? Are you focusing on like, okay, these are the design patterns, or this is how efficient this is, or just how this connects? Like what? Like if you have
design patterns, you're looking at implementation patterns, you're looking at structure patterns, you're looking at modularity patterns, you're looking at security practices. How secure is the code? Like one of the things you saw is like it's got a built-in API key requirement by default. So there's a level of security already implemented for identity management. It's got things like testing. I've got a bunch of tests that are built for it already. It's got sample data that it checks to validate. So it's got data validators from known good data sources. So known good expectations from known good data sources. Anything that doesn't meet that, I automatically know there's something wrong with the data, or there's something wrong with the process. And if I know the data is good, the only thing it can be is the process. So I've messed something up in the functions, and I have to go fix that. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Those are the things that we're looking for, because we need to know that you understand what it is that you're actively working on. You need to understand it. That's why I don't recommend that you just generate something from an LLM and let it spit out its code, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude or Nano Banana or whatever. Like pick your, I mean, Nano Banana does a video, but you get the idea. But the whole point is you need to understand what you're looking at. And the problem with leveraging LLMs is you won't. And it's going to show painfully clearly, very quickly. It is what it is. If you don't know the code, we know that you don't know the code because you can't modify the code. And that's the easiest question. It's like, hey, I want you to add a processor route. I want it to be a slash innuendo, and I want it to process palindromes, and I want you to add that to your app. Well, if you don't understand how it's actually put together, you don't know that for Flask, for instance, you have to go to your routes file. Well, for your routes file, that depends on how the system processed it. LLMs will spit it out in a variety of ways. It might do it fully modular, where it has its own dedicated route section with its own dedicated routes file, and it might just be in the main file. It just depends on what the LLM felt like doing. It's not standardized. And that's something you have to know about the LLMs, which means you have to know about the code. And you have to actually understand how the code is bolted together. And even if they're not built to the same standard, if you understand how the language works, you will be able to say, oh, well, it can only be in a handful of places. It either has to be in a dedicated routes section or it has to be in the main file. And, well, let's look at the main file. Pull it up really quick. And the main file, oh, yep, it has routes right there. It has at app.get, and it's got my /crumpet to take it to crumpet to dump it. But yeah, each one of these files, they mean something, because with my classifier2 file, for instance, it's a totally different one. It's running it based out of the app file, and it's got a dedicated routes section. And so it depends on what you want to do. Like how you structure it, how you frame it, it all matters. And again, I can't stress enough, if you don't understand the code, it will show. And it makes you look really, really bad.
So, Logan, how do people get to this high level that you're speaking of right now? Like what?
Literally start with a basic Flask application. For Flask, for instance, literally just sit down and like I said, start building stuff. Your Flask applications are going to be incredibly generic. It's going to be a one file Flask application. It's going to be the Wasegi dot a py file. It's going to be you're running your Wasegi or Asegi server, and it's going to be that and your project.py file. And it's going to be everything in that py file is going to be probably like a slash, an app.get slash. It's not going to have an API key. It's going to have your basic imports at the top. And then it's going to be like define H, which is going to be like a hello world or a test. And it's like 2 lines, so 3 lines, 10 lines. And it's very basic. But then you can add extra routes. You can add extra features. You can integrate an API key. You can add these features. I mean, API key is like @require API key. It's literally 1 line. It's that long. It can fit my eyeball. Like it's super easy, but it's one more functionality, one more feature, one more, and you just keep adding and adding and adding and adding. And as you get more and more experience, you understand how things are bolted together. And as you get more and more complex, eventually you're going to end up with like a 300, 400, 500 line page Flask application. And the natural order is it's too big. It's frustrating to read. I don't want to scroll forever to get through things. And so naturally you modularize it. And the first thing that you do is you end up creating a services and a routes folder. And then you import everything. And now you're starting to get to sophisticated coding as you naturally evolve. But it's literally, in almost every case I've experienced, it's out of convenience because it's so annoying to like have to scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll, or drag it and scroll. And it's just like, and you're just like, oh God, I missed it. I come back up. I go back down. All right, there it is. Like click.
Yeah.
And then, no, it's like,
what framework would they be using for this?
It's up to them. Pick your poison. My personal recommendation is look into the industry that you want to work in. Look into what's the top most popular languages for that industry and start using them. A perfect example would be if you're a mechanic and you want to be an industry mechanic, Are you going to go learn how to build Bugattis? Probably not. Same thing with programming. Why did you go learn R? Like, unless you're going to specifically be a data scientist, why did you learn R? I'm not saying don't go learn R. And I'm not saying don't go learn Rust. And I'm not saying don't go learn C. And I'm not saying don't go learn Java. But if you're going to work in the industry and you want to do a particular thing like security or systems administration, you need to learn the languages that they use on a regular basis. Because I built a project in R. Fantastic. We need a lot of bash. You don't meet the requirement.
Right.
You're filtered out. Now, if I see a resume, I might refer you over to a buddy of mine who does data science. But that's why, again, I don't filter out candidates, because I know lots of people that are looking, and I will refer you to a completely different company in some cases. It's like, if I look at your resume and I look at the job board for the company, and I blame the recruiters for this, but if I look at it and I see that, oh, well, this guy's heavy in R, but he's got great experience, but he's not a good fit for our company, I'm going to send you to someone like Dell, someone like EMC, someone like Walmart or Target, or some other major data shop. It's like, hey, I got a guy that I got by complete happenstance for a role. He's not a good fit for us, but I think he's a great referral for you. And I'll send the recruiter your resume.
That's great.
A lot of people are unemployed now. So what should they be doing? One, to stay afloat. Two, to pop out to, to recruiters or hiring managers to be able to get that job. Kind of like a twofold question.
So from a financial perspective, the best way for you to stay afloat is to have a savings. I mean, the best thing for you to do is to have a second income stream, but and not be dependent on one income stream for your entire financial structure. So investing into dividend paying assets, secondary income streams, gig work, things of that nature, anything along that track is a fantastic way to maintain your financial structure. My personal recommendation to people, especially if you're married or you're a two income household for some reason, is set your cost basis to the lowest income of the household and make that your standard of living. And that's just your level of standard of living. So if it's like she makes 100, he makes 50, you set it to 50. If she makes 50 and he makes 150, you set it to 50. And you just you have that extra income, because the higher income is the expendable income, all your cost basis. So like the reason why you do that is simple. If the lowest level income is your standard of living and the higher income earner is the expendable income, and let's say the higher income earner loses his job or her job, it doesn't matter, because the cost of living is still covered. But if the cost of living person loses their job, it doesn't matter, because the higher level income can easily exceed that income because it does mathematically already.
Right.
And so it doesn't matter. That's the easiest way, in my personal opinion, to strategically long-term prevent that issue, because you can adjust for that. And then when you have wage inflation by moving up to your higher level roles, getting promotions, you don't change your standard of living. And then you just adjust for that and you shift that naturally. The second one is to stay debt free. Don't go into debt. There's no reason to maintain debt. As I move towards building my own bank and moving away from tech entirely for my extremely long-term goals, the number one thing that I would say from a banking perspective is debt is not your friend. Anything that tells you otherwise is simply an untruth. Your expendable income is what we look at when we decide whether or not we're going to give you a loan. Your DTI is everything. That's why you automatically don't get a loan if your DTI exceeds 40, for instance. You just won't get a loan, period. Your credit score is irrelevant. That said, there are some companies that will give you a loan as long as your credit score is high enough, regardless of the risk, because they just automatically assume you're going to figure it out, which is a terrible idea. And that's why private credit's imploding. So I told everybody to get out of private credit, and it is imploding. Some of them have lost 30 to 70% of their value. So yeah. Also, if y'all bought silver like I told you to, you went from 17 to 91. So congratulations, you 5x'd your money in 3 months. You're welcome. Yeah, it's a terrible idea. If you have a lot of different smaller debts, my personal recommendation is a consolidation loan. Go to a credit union that you do business with regularly, preferably, and consolidate all of your debts into one larger sum, but a lower payment and aggregate.
Yeah.
Because if you've got 5 different loans with $200 to $500 a piece,
Right.
and
Right.
you just structure that into one 5-year loan, for instance, and it's at $750, $800, the monthly cost basis is going to go down, which is ideal. Now,
Right.
the thing that I would say is don't pay different, just pay the same, but you have the ability to flex that bandwidth down in the instance that something happens, which is what you should do if the income goes down. That way you can still maintain some kind of level of standard of living that's comfortable and enjoyable, and you're not just miserable. But that's what I would say from that perspective. And then what was the second part?
Okay, so how do they get back into the job market? How are they catching the attention of recruiters and
Okay,
hiring
catching.
managers?
Well, that's a good question. The first question you have to ask is what level recruiter? If you're going into tech, what tier level are you looking for? Tier 4, you could just be like, I have a pulse, and there's an interest level immediately.
Yeah.
And that's because that's just they need bodies. And then your tier 1s, you could be cum laude from a FAANG history company, and you might still have issues depending on what your skill sets are, because those companies are structuring for the best in breed, best in class for that particular focus in the areas. If you're not evolving with them, you're falling behind, or you've already fallen off the boat and they're not going back for you. They're ruthless in that regard, but they can be because they pay an astronomical amount of money, which is the first thing that I tell people to understand. FANG companies can ask for what they ask for because they pay what they pay. You're talking about a 200% to 800% difference on average. There is a reason why they can be as picky as they are, and they are picky. But that's because the standards are high, because the compensation is insane. Like landing a FANG level role, you're in the top 0.1% in the world of earners
Wow.
automatically. Like it is a game changing experience, and there's just no other way to describe it. Like,
But hey, man, we're getting to the top of the hour, man. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show.
absolutely, man. Absolutely. I'm always happy to come on.
Yeah, this is our longtime friend Logan, and he just shared his wisdom with us once again, man. But before we get out of here, what closing thoughts did you want to leave with our audience, and where can they find you at?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm on there more often than not nowadays. I've kind of dropped off of all the other social medias. It's just too much AI slop, I guess is the popular term.
Yeah.
And it's just not
Yeah.
worth paying attention to. If it's not
Pretty
a
much.
specific, yeah, if it's not a specific networking thing, I just don't waste my time with it. Not because I don't care or I don't want to keep up with people, but because my projects are too significant. I've got my research projects that I'm working on. I've got a new project that I'm working on for food scarcity and food stability, integrating food warehouses and nonprofits and pantries and donors and stuff. And that just fills a lot of my time. So I don't really have time to just, let me go doom scroll on Facebook for 12 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. We'll catch y'all next.